a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, then God.
So Christmas is a time when we cook and bake and eat. Plenty, 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 plenty. So today
Yeah.
on 10 Minutes to Your Health, we look at ways to avoid food poisoning with family physician Dr. Susan Minot R. Scott. Good morning, Dr. Sue. How are you?
Morning, Doc.
Good morning, Delia. Good morning, Neville. How are you all? And
Can't com-
Merry Christmas to all of Jamaica.
Thank you very much. Can't complain at all. I was actually diagnosed with food poisoning once, and I couldn't figure out where it came from, why it happened, what I ate. How does this happen? And how do you know it's food poisoning as opposed to you just have a little stomach problem?
Food poisoning will give you a history of having ingested certain foods. There are about 3 categories of foods that seem to have a problem. Fish that's not properly cooked, meat that's not properly cooked, eggs, some milk that's not pasteurized, and foods that have been contaminated in the process of cooking with dirty utensils. So when we're preparing for large groups of people, it's very important that the kitchen is clean. It's also very important that the surfaces that you use to clean your vegetables, cut up your protein is separate. You don't use what you do for the vegetables, the same for the protein. And the surfaces must be clean, the knives must be clean, the hands must be washed. And if you think that you're getting food from, like ground provisions and vegetables, they must be soaked before, maybe in a bowl with water, a little bleach, and leave it there to go on soaking and being clean before you actually prepare it for the meal.
Okay, Dr. Sue, how does it present itself? Do I just have a stomach ache? That's how I know something is not right?
No, it's far more severe than that. The problem with food poisoning is the dehydration, the severe diarrhea that you will get. And usually this give you a story of having ingested the food maybe anywhere between 4 to 8 and as long as 2 days after, depending on the organisms, because sometimes it's a toxin, sometimes it's a bacteria, and sometimes, as you know, viruses can also make you quite ill. And if you're at all compromised, if you're diabetic, if you have HIV, if you have any form of immune compromise, you're a cancer survivor in the middle of your chemotherapy, you're a small child who's just moving from breast milk to normal food. These are the categories of individuals that suffer badly when they get infected by an organism that causes them to have profuse vomiting, explosive vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal cramps. They can get headache, and they can have fever.
Yeah. And you raised an important point, Doc. It can manifest itself in so many different ways. When do you know that it's actually poisoning and not just, okay, this is just making me a little bit uncomfortable? When does it get to the level where you really need to go see the doctor or need to seek some kind of intervention?
Okay. If you do your usual, I have a tummy upset, so I'm going to come off food. I'm going to go on my clear fluids, and for our population, coconut water is a very good option. If you don't have actual coconut water, you can do rehydration salts that you can get at the pharmacy and so on. So you come off all food. You then do your clear fluids. You might take some Panadol if you have it, or Oralgin if you have it for the cramps. But it is persistent to the point where you're tired, you're lethargic, the child is going off in a corner, they're not moving as fast as they put something in, it's coming out. That individual needs to go to a hospital because they need to get an IV line and rehydration. Because if you get too dehydrated, you have other things that can happen, things that will damage your kidneys and so on.
Okay.
Sometimes you might have, and it happened to me that I had a drink in the fridge and I probably left it a little bit too long. And when I tasted it, it was, I think, pineapple juice and something. When I tasted it, I could say that it never so right. Can that cause food poisoning or no?
Sometimes the ice, if the water that made the ice is not clean, or has been contaminated with sewage or something else, like the water supply, there's a water lock off and the water comes back, and then it's not sterile water or good water and you haven't boiled it, that can be a problem. If it's just that the fruit is stale and it's no longer tasty, then sure, throw it out, because your taste buds will guide you. But in actual things like the toxins and bacteria that come through the food itself, very often it's on the food. And so if you don't cook the food to high temperatures for sufficient time, you don't kill it. And therefore you can get sick.
Yeah.
And usually when someone gets sick from food poisoning, other people who have been in the same meal are also sick. So you very often, if you just pick up the phone and say, you were at Christmas dinner, are you feeling okay? Because I'm a little off. You'll get one or two people who are also unwell.
Doc, let me tell you, this morning in our Hot Topics, we were talking about contaminated meat. And there's a thing where people feel, well, if I put enough heat on it, whatever on it, the heat will kill it. So I'll be okay. I don't think that's so.
No, it has to be high heat, not little heat, high heat, 180 degrees and beyond. And it has to be for sufficient length of time. So that is not always a good thing, particularly if you have ground meat where they're using our sausages or salami, cold cuts that are just sitting there. Food that has been sitting on the counter too long. You started cooking at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and nobody comes to eat till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it hasn't been refrigerated or it was done from the day before, and people can get unwell.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about eggs, and I can't remember what you said about eggs. What can happen to the egg that would cause food poisoning? I can't remember what you said.
There's a particular organism known as Salmonella, and there's also another one called Listeria. Both of them can spread through eggs particularly eggs that have been mass produced in North America. It's less of a problem here because most of us, if we have eggs, we will do 2 or 3 in the kitchen and that's it.
Right.
But if the eggs are hard boiled and they're in North America, they tend to be buckets of eggs and sell it to restaurants or to people who are party planners and so on, and do egg salads. And these can sometimes cause listeria. Listeria is naughty because it can present as much as 3 to 4 weeks after ingestion, and the severity of the dehydration is extreme. And if you catch it and you know what it is and you give the right antibiotic, the person will do very well. But the diagnosis has to be made first.
Yep. So if you find out that you have food poisoning, you're doing what the physician says you should do. How long before you're well again?
If someone is persistently ill beyond 2 days, I'm uncomfortable. You need to have an assessment by a professional who knows whether you're in trouble or not. If it is that you just had it yesterday and the diarrhea has settled down, you have a little tummy upset, but you don't feel terrible. You just feel a little bit off. Then that's somebody who can manage at home. Yeah. But particularly with small children and the elderly, 2 days, not getting better, getting withdrawn, please get someone to assess them to make sure that we're not getting them into trouble.
And final question, how bad can it be? It's not something that you're going to lose your life or anything like that?
Come again?
I said, how bad can it be? It's not something that you should be worried that you're going to die or anything like that.
If the diagnosis is made and you get proper attention, you'll be fine. Okay. You'll be fine. For the most part, you'll be fine. But as we all know, anybody who has worked at Bustamante Children's Hospital in the casualty will tell you that more than half of the population that are there are usually having some sort of gastroenteritis as a consequence of food.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. God bless you and the family, and have a wonderful holiday season. Stay safe, please.
All right. And you too. Yeah, continue doing the good work, guys.
Thank you very much. Family physician, Dr. Susan Minot Arscott. Very important because someone is going around tomorrow with containers to collect food for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we have to be careful. That's it for 10 minutes to your health. We'll do it again next Thursday.
is getting